Good afternoon. I call to order the August 20th, 2024 regular meeting of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission. For the record, my name is Marie Bjornberg and I serve as chair of the commission. Just a reminder to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices and to speak clearly into the microphone when speaking at the dais or giving testimony. Would the clerk please call the roll so we may verify the presence of a quorum?
Commissioner Booty.
Present.
Fisher.
Present.
Hare.
Present.
Howard.
Present.
Corrado.
Present.
Maston.
Present.
Melblom.
Present.
Merrill.
Present.
Vice Chair Sambold.
Present.
Chair Bjornberg.
Present.
There are 10 members present.
Let the record reflect that we do have quorum. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda for this meeting. We will work from the agendas that are available by the clerk. I will go through the agenda and sort out which items will be discussed and which items will be put on the consent agenda to be approved as recommended by staff without further discussion. Item number 4 is 300 Washington Avenue North, Ward 3. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness and will be on consent unless someone wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation. Item number 5 is 2300 40th Street West, Ward 13. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness and will be discussed. So the proposed agenda is the consent agenda will include item number 4, 300 Washington Avenue North, Ward 3. Is there any opposition from commissioners to the staff recommendations for that item?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item 5 from the staff recommendations and discuss that.
Yep, that will be for discussion. Anyone from the public that wishes to speak in opposition to item number 4 on the consent agenda? Hearing no opposition to placing that item on consent, we will approve that consent item in one motion at the start of the meeting. Item number 5, 2300 40th Street West, Ward 13, will have staff presentation, public comment, and commission discussion and action. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the proposed agenda?
Merrill so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Merrill. Is there a second?
Howard seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Our next order of business will be to approve the minutes from our August 6th, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Maston so moves.
Thank you, Commissioner Masson. Is there a second?
Merrill second.
Thank you, Commissioner Merrill. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions, including commissioners who were absent?
Sambold abstains. Howard abstains.
Thank you, commissioners. The minutes are approved. Okay, before I open the hearing to public comments, let me summarize the process for conducting the public hearing. First, we will act on any items to be withdrawn. Then we will act on any items to be continued. Then we will act on the consent agenda we just set. Once items on the consent agenda are approved, the commission is done with those items and applicants may contact the planning staff tomorrow about next steps. After the consent agenda items are approved, we will take each remaining item in order. Planning staff will present its report and commissioners may ask questions of staff. Then I will open the public hearing and we will hear from the applicant and commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. After that, we will invite public comment. If you do wish to speak, you'll need to do 2 things. Please be sure to sign up on the sheet over by the clerk. If you haven't done this already, you can do this afterwards. When you come up to testify, please state your name and address for the record and keep comments specific to the application before us. I will now open the public hearing on the consent agenda item, which is item number 4, 300 Washington Avenue North, Ward 3. Again, do commissioners oppose staff recommendations for that item? Are there members of public who oppose the staff recommendation for that item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on the consent agenda items. May I have a motion to approve staff findings and recommendations for that?
Fisher so moves.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Is there a second?
Sambolt seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Sambolt. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That item is approved as recommended by staff on the agenda. Applicants may contact planning staff about next steps. Our next item is item number 5, 2300 40th Street West, Ward 13. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness. The staff report is presented by Erin Kay.
Good afternoon, Chair Bjornberg and Commissioners. My name is Erin Kay, and I'm a senior city planner in the Historic Preservation section of the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development, or CPED. I'm here today to present a certificate of appropriateness application for the property located at 2300 40th Street West, which is part of the Como Harriet streetcar line, an individual historic landmark. Here's an aerial view of the designated property, which includes several parcels that span from 36th Street West to about 43rd Street West. The Como Interurban Harriet Line opened for use on July 1st, 1898. Electrified cars were used on the tracks after 1891. The Lake Harriet Trolley, known as 1300, was built in April 1908 and in service until 1954. The project area is located at the line's intersection with 42nd Street West, which is identified by the yellow arrow. Here are some closer views of the project area. The bottom view is from 42nd Street West, looking towards the Linden Hills Depot and the platform. The top two views show the current depot and platform at a closer vantage point. In 1901, a simple wood depot was built in this location. It was replaced in 1912 by a larger building designed by Harry Wild Jones and known as the Chalet Station. The concrete platform was built at this time, and there was also a canopy shelter that extended along the platform. Here's an older photograph, likely from about 1955, after the streetcar tracks had been removed and before the previous depot and canopy structure were demolished shortly thereafter. And you can see how the canopy structure extended all the way to the depot and shared a roof with that structure. Starting in 1969, the Minnesota Streetcar Museum began to rebuild the tracks. In 1990, they built a replica of the 1901 depot, so not the same as the one currently in this photo, which remains on the site today. The resolution designating this landmark does not state which components are included in the designation or a period of significance, which is common for resolutions from the 1970s and 1980s. On the left is a site plan of the proposed project, which is a standalone canopy structure that is separate from the depot. The goal is to provide shade for visitors as they wait for the streetcar. On the right, you see a foundation plan for the structure. And here we have drawings of the west elevation and a north-south section showing the profile and structure of the proposed canopy structure. The new canopy will measure 42 feet 9 inches long by 12 feet wide by 13 feet tall. It is modeled after the 1912 canopy, but it is shorter in length than the previous version. The new structure will have 3 I-beam center steel columns that will rest on the 1912 footings of the original canopy structure. The structure is proposed to have triangular steel trusses and a steel ridge beam. Decorative iron brackets matching the 1912 canopy are proposed on the columns to connect to the corresponding trusses. The roof is proposed to be clad with wood underneath and covered with cedar shakes on top. Here are drawings of the south elevation and an east-west section showing the profile and also the structure of the proposed canopy. This is a photo provided by the applicant that shows the structure and materials of the previous canopy structure, which, as I mentioned, serves as an inspiration for the new canopy proposed today. There are no design guidelines for this landmark. Staff focused primarily on consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. Staff finds that although the new canopy is based on the original canopy, it is not a direct replica. Its physical impacts will be minimal, as it will be built on the existing concrete platform using the 1912 footings. It will not impact or change any distinctive materials, features, spaces, or spatial relationships of this landmark. The design is simple and uses materials that are contemporary and also compatible with the historical significance of the property. The decorative iron brackets that connect the columns to the roof trusses do match what was there historically. The applicant has expressed that this is a critical component of the design. So in order to avoid creating a false sense of history, staff recommends conditioning the inclusion of interpretation on site so that visitors can understand the new structure as not the same as the 1912 structure that was previously on site. Therefore, staff recommends that the Heritage Preservation Commission adopt staff findings and approve the certificate of appropriateness to construct a freestanding canopy for the Como Harriet streetcar line located at 2300 40th Street West, an individual historic landmark subject to the following conditions. Number one, the applicant shall provide on-site interpretation to differentiate the new canopy from the non-extant 1912 Chalet Station canopy, and along with the 2 standard conditions of approval. Staff has received 1 letter of support from a member of the public, which was included in your packet. The applicant is here today and can share more information about the project as well as answer your questions. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stay for questions.
Thank you for that report. Commissioners, are there questions for staff? Okay, I will now open the public hearing for this item. The applicant, I believe, is here and would like to speak. If so, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Isaacs, 3816 Vincent Avenue South, Minneapolis. I'm the board chair for the Minnesota Streetcar Museum. And actually, Aaron has done a fine job of describing it. I brought more photos that maybe will put it in context more if you're interested in hearing it. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I brought in a little PowerPoint, which was just a collection of additional photos.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Hare?
Thank you, Chair Bjornberg. The 3E columns that are proposed to hold up the structure, sitting on the 1912 foundations, does that extend to the furthest north foundation, or is there, or like where does the structure sit compared to the original structure?
It's the northern three poles. Can somebody help me bring up this PowerPoint? And then I can show you on here specifically. Usually you have to hit slideshow, I think. And from beginning.
That cute little thing.
For starters, well, I might as well just run through these. Let's see. I can use the mouse to click. I'm sorry. How do I control the? Where do I go to control it? Left. Okay.
use the left one.
All right. Well, then I want to get back to the start.
I'll go back for you. You can also use the arrows here.
Oh, okay. Good.
That might be easier.
Sorry about that. Okay, might as well run through these quick. This is the photo of the original 1901 depot, which we replicated. And interestingly, after it was replaced in 1912 by the larger station, this one went down to the west shore of the lake and was used by the park board as the canoe rental office. And then it actually, at some point, it wound up in the 1950s right up next to the refectory, and sometime in the 50s was scrapped. And so it was replaced by the Chalet Station in 1912, and the station is actually a combination of streetcar and park board facility. It's actually on park board land, but the canopy is on the streetcar land. The front door of this thing was the boundary between the two. This had a confectionery and an eating area behind those big arched windows, and then in the basement was storage for the park board and a holding cell for the park police. And so here, to answer your question, it is the leftmost 3 poles that we are planning to replicate. And you can see where they're at in relation to the north end of the platform and in relation to the stairway. They basically come down as far as the stairway railing that goes down. Here's a picture of it in, this would be about 1953. Here's another picture of it. You can actually see the left 3 poles that we're intending to do. Another picture of it in service, once again about 1953-54. Once again, the same time, looking at it from the other end. You can see the pedestrian underpass that's still there. And here it is. This was the one you saw after abandonment. The current thing today. Another picture today, so you can kind of see how it relates. This cone is the site of the original footing. We went down, excavated it to see what was there, discovered it was extremely robust. And then you can see that little concrete circle, that's the second footing, and there where the dark concrete ends, and by the way, the dark pavement is the original 1912 concrete, superseded by newer stuff beyond that. But right at the line where the new stuff starts is the third one. And that's, when we went down to find the footing, there it is. And so we hired a structural engineer to make sure that, we could mount it on this footing in a robust enough manner that it could handle all wind load or other structural needs. And that's what I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, let's discuss. Are there any questions, comments on the proposed application? Commissioner Melblom.
Thank you, Chair Grunberg. So I like the application. I think it's really nice. It'll be a nice amenity. The issue I have is it feels too closely to the historic, what historically existed there, and I think that we're not hewing to the dictate of not recreating what was historically there. I recognize it's different. I think the idea of having interpretation is good, but the fact is that a lot of people who go there might have children. It might be people who are otherwise not inclined to look at interpretation, and I think that they will all look at this and feel like this was original. It was originally there, and that's my concern. So I feel that it's creating a false sense of history. So therefore, my only concern is that the staff work with the applicant to visually modify the canopy proposal. And it could be the structure or the canopy itself to make it look less historic.
Do any other commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Howard?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I agree with Commissioner Melblom. This is an odd site because we have a recreation of the original depot that was there, right? And now we're taking a canopy from a later version and adding it to the site. And so you have this kind of a dichotomy of the history. I like the idea of the interpretation. I would like to see that interpretation perhaps reviewed and approved by staff as part of that. I don't know, Commissioner Melblom, if you have specific thoughts on, is it the scroll work inside that's, I mean, it's modern materials, it's not a recreation, but I can see where people would be confused. What are the, I guess I'm asking you, what are the things that that you're struggling with?
Commissioner Melblom?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Howard. I think the several things are, I don't have a problem with the columns following the spacing, but I think that the scroll work, the hipped roof structure, the simple and somewhat unadorned truss, the triangular trusses that hold it up. I think the vast majority of people will think this was what was originally there because they're not sophisticated enough to know that. They're not architects, they're not designers. And while it may seem like a very fine point and maybe to a lot of people not important, I think it's important that we not create a false sense of history. I was on my walk over here, I was thinking like, well, could it just be painted like Pepto-Bismol pink? Like, something overt enough to make it look not historic, or for somebody to look at it and question like, well, why is it like that? And then they might read the interpretation. I don't know if that's enough, and because we're not supposed to design from the bench up here. I feel like what I would like to do is to approve this, but with adding a condition to say that staff would work with the applicant to make the design less visually similar to the historic content. And I think I would be comfortable leaving that up to staff to work through that. But it just feels a little too close to me. Does that?
Madam Chair, can I respond at some point after your discussion?
We have closed the public hearing, so not at this point.
I'm sorry I did not understand your process. I would have spoken earlier
Thank you.
because I have a strong objection to what he is saying.
Thank you. Are there other comments from the commission?
I think my initial take when I read through the application was similar to Commissioner Malblum's. And I think in further thinking about it, the whole thing is almost a recreation of something. You know, the trolley line is brought back, the building from 1901 is brought back, and now we're talking about a canopy similar to what was there in 1912. And I'm hoping there's interpretation or messaging at the site that explains all of these things. And I think that made me feel more comfortable with it as conditioned with the on-site interpretation. I do agree with Commissioner Howard that it may be useful to have some review of how that interpretation is presented to visitors by staff, not to keep loading up your plate with things to do, but just to make sure that we are not creating a false sense of history and that is being explained in the documentation, let's say.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. I will add my opinion here. I agree in that I had a sort of similar read of looking at it, and I think that for me, the specific detail was the ironwork, just feeling so similar. I think that it's helpful to sort of see that the site has changed, both what is currently existing, what has been there, and that it's a little bit different in terms of how it is not connected to the building, and it's a smaller portion of it. And I think that that's sort of what also made me feel a little bit more comfortable with the idea of interpretation being part of that. I do understand, Commissioner Melblum, what you're saying about, then somebody has to read the interpretation. And I feel like if there's one thing I have learned is that, like, people don't read signs. It's hard to get people to read things. I think that the interpretation could also be helpful in just understanding entire site and the evolution of that. I think it's also a little bit challenging that there isn't a specific period of significance for this. So it's not like I can be like, oh, well, the first building is what we're really looking at. It's kind of all of it. So any other commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Bjornberg. I agree with you and Commissioner Maston. This might be a question for staff, but I guess I'm wondering, is there any sort of specification around placement of interpretive plaque, signage, anything like that? I'm wondering if we want to keep the design as is, if the location of that may be important. My understanding of the Streetcar Museum is that people go get their ticket at the building on site and then walk over to the canopy area. So maybe specifying where that interpretive plaque would be might help people catch it more readily. Just curious if the staff can answer to that.
Commissioner Fisher and Chair Bjornberg, that is an option for you to place on the condition. Staff left the condition very flexible for the Streetcar Museum to develop their interpretation that they saw fit as a way to help. This is not the best use of the word, but mitigate the similarities for the design of the canopy. But I would just be cautious and not, still allowing some flexibility, but just being very specific in terms of where you would want to see some placement, but allowing flexibility at the same time, because the designs for it have not been, created at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, thoughts from commissioners? Commissioner Hare?
Thank you, Chair Bjornberg. My thoughts on this my question to other commissioners is, does it make a difference that this is a museum and the intent of this site is to educate the general public on the streetcars, what the look and the feel of that time was, and that's really their mission, and by not allowing this piece, as I would consider it kind of a museum exhibit of sorts. Unfortunately, the original structure was lost to time. However, with the proper setup or arrangement, I could see this as being a exhibit, explaining what the original would have been, something tangible that potentially photos of the original structure could not convey.
Thank you, Commissioner Hare. Commissioner Sambolt?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards, because the site is kind of a lot of replication. I mean, even the tracks were gone and those have been brought back, and the structure that's there was a kind of a replication of something that was earlier, and the fact that there is no period of significance that's defined, and the site evolved over time, and now we're putting back pieces, and those replication pieces are evolving over time, and they're going to represent different time periods. I have less of a problem with the fact that the new canopy is going to look somewhat historic, because I do think it conveys a feeling of the time period that we're trying to convey for this site. I do think the interpretation is really important, and I would potentially add that the on-site interpretation should be reviewed with staff and approved by staff prior. And I would hope that this is, if there isn't already interpretation about the about the depot building that exists there, if there isn't already interpretation that also illustrates that that was a reconstruction, and then I would hope that on site there's some images of what the site was at different periods in time, and that offers a record, both for public education and also kind of a record of what's happened on site, that there were components, they were here, they've left over time, and now they're being recreated. I think that's really important to me that that exists. And so I'd be in favor of allowing the design to move forward as it is with the interpretation.
Thank you, Commissioner Sambold. Are there, Commissioner Corrado?
Thank you, Chair Bjornberg. I think I live in this neighborhood. Sorry, if I'm remembering correctly from my walks, there's other signage and interpretations of this line, and they have a lot of pictures, and it's sites that don't have the rail, but it does, at least to me, when I first moved there, it gave me a better understanding of the history of the site and why there's what looked like an alley, and there's parks. I guess it's like a small little pocket park is there. And so I guess my hope is that whatever new interpretation happens on this site, it ties back to the larger neighborhood, and it kind of creates I think those other interpretation signs may not be in the designated corridor, but I think it still extends back into the neighborhood and helps everybody kind of tie back to the space.
Thank you, Commissioner Corrado.
Madam Chair?
Are there other
I could
commissioners?
clarify a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm sorry, the public hearing has closed. Are there other commissioner comments? Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the Heritage Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness to construct a freestanding canopy for the Como Harriet streetcar line located at 2300 40th Street West, with the condition that the applicant shall provide on-site interpretation to differentiate the new canopy from the non-extant 9212 chalet station canopy, and then adding that the staff review and approve that interpretation before it is implemented. And the two other standard conditions included in the certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Is there a second?
Maston seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Booty,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Hare,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Maston,
Aye.
Melblum,
Nay.
Merrill. Oh, I'm sorry. Corrado,
Aye.
Merrill,
Aye.
Maston,
Aye.
Sambold,
Aye.
Bjornberg.
Aye.
There are 9 ayes and 1 nay.
Thank you. That motion passes. That concludes our public hearing items. Do staff have any announcements or commission business?
I do. Thank you, Chair Bjornberg. As you know, my name is Andrea Burke, and I serve as supervisor for the historic preservation staff in CPED. I have a few announcements. One, reminding commissioners that open appointments will begin on September 1st, so just in a little over a week. We are recruiting for positions. I have already started a little bit of recruitment efforts to different organizations that I'm aware of, but encourage you all also, if you know any candidates that you think would be interested on sitting on the HPC, we will have at least one open seat for this coming season, and would be interested in getting a variety of applicants who are interested. So that will happen. I will be sending out an email reminder, but open appointments goes from September 1st to September 30th, and it will not be extended. Also, just an update that the next meeting of the African American Heritage Work Group will be August 27th, so next week, a week from today, at 4 p.m., and it will be at the Public Service Center. Public Service Building, forgive me, that's a correction. We are in the center, it's in the Public Service Building. Also, last call for scholarships to the Preserve Minnesota Conference in Red Wing, which is taking place from September 18th to September 20th. Can I just there were no shows of hands at the last meeting for interest in obtaining a scholarship, but can I get one more read, because today is our deadline before we need to submit our paperwork to the State Historic Preservation Office. Seeing none. Oh, wait, hold on. There's one.
Sorry, I just don't know my work travel schedule.
Okay.
So I don't know that I can commit today. That would be the issue.
Okay. Let me reach out to you. I'll talk with Erin. Erin's coordinating the scholarships and application, because we have to get formal approval through council before we can accept them. But the deadline for the scholarship is coming up soon, so hence the request for names. All of us will be there during that time. So, and then I saved the best news for last. But if you guys had not already heard, but Minneapolis was selected as the forum conference location for 2026. We actually knew this a while ago, but could not say anything until it was formally announced. But it is very exciting to be able to do this. So there will be a lot of efforts ramping up for this. I encourage you all, if you are still sitting on the commission or not, to volunteer, participate. You're always welcome to get in touch with me in any way. We'll be working with the State Historic Preservation Office as well as with NAPC to coordinate this effort. But we're very excited, and we're happy to host the selecting committee back in February when they were touring sites to host. So, yeah, wanted to end on that piece of good news, and no further updates. Thanks.
Thank you. That's very, very exciting, and good work, everybody, on getting that to happen here. Any commissioner announcements? Commissioner Howard.
I would just say I promised everyone no hurricanes for the forum in 2 years, so I think we're safe with that, but I did not promise anything about snow or tornadoes. So.
Yeah, I'm like, what time of year is that? You never know. Any other commissioner announcements? All right. With that, we have completed all items on the agenda. There being no other business to come before this meeting, and without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. The next regular meeting is September 10th, 2024.